Thank you, Sean. Sean's got some stuff going on there in the background, so we're going to let him go. Ray in Maryland. Go ahead, Ray.
Hey, Eddie. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
I'll get to my band really quickly, but just wanted to mention you were talking about the epidemic of backing tracks, and they just announced the Ocean City, Maryland Bike Fest, and they announced the headliner, and I got dogs too, like Sean. Sorry about that. And they announced the headliner. And it's Shinedown. And I like their music and everything, but I'm going to do what you always recommend and vote with my wallet, and we're not going. So too much out there, too much I've seen, too much I've heard that it's a track show, so I'm not going. So just wanted to...
Again, I have heard, I don't know that band, and I've not, outside of when they've performed at festivals that I've been on, I've watched a song or two and not really watched, but I have heard repeatedly from others about that band and the overuse. And I know there was a thing where the guitar player got into it or started, calling people out for saying it and saying, well, everybody does it and we have orchestration and all that. Again, I don't think anybody's talking about that. I think that that's the thing that happens with this stuff is the initial pushback is like, well, it's either everybody does it or we can only do it with, we're using it for this piece we have with an orchestra. Nobody's talking about that stuff. What we're talking about is what is really happening here with various bands. It's instruments, it's vocals, it's triggered drums, it's all of this stuff that makes a live show so anything but. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I've said it a million times. I'm not talking about if you got an orchestra on one song. I don't expect you to carry a friggin' orchestra, but it's just so blatant what's going on. And if nobody cares, and look, that's your prerogative to do, Ray. But the shitty thing about it is this. The bottom line is 95% of the people are going to have no idea, and they're still going to go. It's just, to me, it's not even about the economics of boycotting it or anything for any band. To me, it's about, I don't want to hear that. I revert back to the fact that the whole reason I go to see any band live is to hear them play live. So if that's off the table, what's the point? Right. I'll stay home and listen to the record. Anyway, what's your band, Ray?
That's a crazy idea, Eddie. You're out of your mind.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. My band that I thought should have been huge, and you were involved with them early on with at least their label, was a band called, I think they were called Metal-Lica, or something like that. It just didn't work out for them. Now, my band is Sabotage. Sabotage, I loved Power of the Night, Hall of the Mountain King, Dungeons Are Calling, Sirens. But what doesn't, it's never brought up in conversation when you hear about great guitar players. And Chris was incredible. Unique riffs. His solos were compositions. I know John had his David Draymond kind of thing, but they had great records, great songs. I thought, and yes, I know they were the seed for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but those records I thought were just incredible, top to bottom.
Yeah, no doubt. Sabotage comes up a lot. There's people that often ask, and thank you, Ray, for the call. A lot of people often ask about Sabotage doing stuff again. And as Ray mentioned, they were the seed for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. The active people from Sabotage are in TSO, and TSO is this gargantuan arena holiday touring thing, as you know. So there's just, you're not going to go from doing that to putting club gigs together to go do Sabotage, even though they from time to time will do a gig like in Europe or whatever. But I agree with Ray. There is the Chris Oliva, who tragically died very young in a car accident in Florida, was a phenomenal guitar player, and Sabotage had some great stuff like Sirens and Hall of the Mountain King and all of that. They just didn't. They came close with Mountain King. I think if I remember correctly, one of the things they did is I think they started out more of like a full-on metal band, and they got a little bit more polished. We saw so many bands kind of do that as the 80s rolled in and his videos got more popular. They started maybe dressing up a little bit, and I think that may have hurt a little bit of their metal cred at the time. I think they gradually started making more polished records. Then there were singer changes, guitar player changes, and I think the lineup changes hurt as well. And, John Oliva, for as great of a talent as he is, John was not cut from the cloth of what frontmen looked like at that time. He's a big guy. He's a big, heavy-set guy. And although he had a great voice, you also recall, of course, that especially in the mid-'80s, it was major image conscious. It was guys looking like chicks and the whole look. We know that. And that was so not what John could pull off. So the image thing could have played into it a little bit too, although Savatage was more of a metal band than like a commercial hard rock band. But yeah, and losing Chris was a huge blow because he was a phenomenal player. So I think there were a lot of things that went on with that band. But John Oliva is still active behind the scenes with Savatage and working on their with TSO and working on their albums and their productions. He doesn't go on the road anymore, but he's still an active part of the band behind the scenes.